Rob, hello. Does this bring us any closer to finding out what actually happened here?
Well, not really, I think, is a lot of confusion coming out of Iran about what really happened. If you remember, the first reaction to the assassination was that the Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, the nuclear scientist, was in a convoy traveling towards the town of Absard. They reached a roundabout. The car was surrounded. A bomb was thrown. The car was stopped. Armed men on motorcycles fired into the car. He was killed. Bodyguards were wounded. Some of the assailants were wounded. There was possibility even of an arrest. And then suddenly, the story has changed completely. Now we're getting an entirely different version. There was nobody on the scene at all. Everything was carried out electronically. The convoy was attacked, and there wasn't. But everything was done apparently by satellite. There was a machine gun on a Nissan truck beside a roundabout, which fired on the car, Mr. Fakhrizadeh. He was killed in that way. No arrests were made. Is left looking entirely vulnerable to whatever the source of this attack was. The implication in Iran, of course, is that Israel was responsible, and it looks entirely likely that that's the case. Israel certainly has the means, certainly has the motivation for doing this, and there's past previous in this as well, with attacks in 2010, 2012 on Iranian nuclear scientists. But the upshot in the end is no arrests, complete confusion in Iran, and the Iranian security services looking like they're incapable of protecting their own people from these sort of attacks.
Now, Rob, could you expand a little on this official reaction from Tehran? What's behind that?
Well, they're scratching around to come up with an adequate response. They don't want to look weak, but on the other hand, they don't want to be drawn into a reaction that could be too strong. The point seems to be that there should be a very strong attack against Israel. In the newspapers, for instance, there's been a suggestion that Iran should launch some kind of attack in the Israeli city of Haifa, in which human casualties would be high. I don't think that that's the official position at all. The official position seems to be to back away from what looks to most people like an Israeli trap, that they don't want to be sucked into overreacting, which would in turn lead to a strong response from Israel and perhaps the United States, which would ruin any chance of a better relationship with the incoming administration of Joe Biden in the United States. In Iran, they're hoping that when Joe Biden comes in, a man who has spoken about the possibility of returning the United States to the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action on that things can improve. But if they overreact now, the chances are that any possibility of a better relationship with the United States, even under Joe Biden, would be lost. So, I think at this stage, they will seek to avoid any precipitate reaction. We may see a response rather similar to the one back in January this year, when Qasem Soleimani, the leader of the Revolutionary Guard, was killed by a missile strike by the United States. There was some suggestion then that there would be a very strong Iranian response. There wasn't really. It was quite a moderate response. Rockets were launched at a US base in Iraq, but it was left at that. I suspect that this time round, the Iranians too will restrain themselves from over-responding and hope that when Joe Biden comes into office, that some sort of a negotiation can be re-entered into with the United States.